Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly Colorado news roundup for July 29th, 2023. Every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. Well, I hope you had a great week. Today is Saturday, July 29th. Special shout out to my brother Kyle. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Kyle. But first off, I want to start with freestatecolorado.com, of course, my website, where you can find all the archives from the weekly roundups previously. I've been doing them almost every week this year. But just this week, put out this book review about a book that is very important. Short book, 130 pages. Could make a great gift if you have a child going off to college this year, or maybe somebody who's going to be out on their own, or somebody who might be getting their driver's license even. You Have the Right to Remain Innocent by James Duane is a great book that kind of shows you how the legal system works and can maybe even keep you out of jail. It's very unfortunate that you should not talk to the police. This book goes into why, and very interesting, full of stories about people who are completely innocent, said the wrong thing, police thought they were guilty, and ended up going to jail. So check out that review on freestatecolorado.com. Also on freestatecolorado.com, you can find the property tax series that Natalie Metten and I have been creating over the past several weeks. Part 6 will be coming out here on Monday, going over some of the different property tax issues here in Colorado. So if you want to be informed, if you want to really understand this property tax situation, why property taxes are so high, how the state legislature is responsible for these high property taxes, and of course, how politicians are lying to you about this upcoming ballot initiative, HH, what a bad idea it is. So check that all out at freestatecolorado.com. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and let's take a look at some of the other headlines across the state. First one I want to check out is from denvergazette.com. Kind of a frightening headline for a lot of people, those in fixed incomes, maybe some of the elderly out there. Denver Gazette showing here from Marianne Goodland, July 22nd, 2023. Coloradans could see double-digit increases in health insurance premiums for 2024. Now, that is very frightening for a lot of people. Everything has gone up so much from your grocery bill to your gas bill. Now it looks like your health insurance premium. So, what is going on in Colorado that is driving these costs so high? I think we know who is to blame. Of course, our esteemed uh, and authoritarian governor, Mr. Polis here, as well as the state legislature. Let's take a look at the article. Health insurance for Coloradans in 2024 could go up by more than 11% depending on the plan purchased. Wow. That's based on premium increases requested by health insurance companies, although not what has been approved, according to a news release from the State Division of Insurance. For one, it's absolutely ridiculous that we have a division of insurance. I mean, every every day it seems we're becoming more like the old Soviet Union, where there's a bureaucracy for every aspect of our lives. The increase for Colorado option plans, state designed plans that health insurers are mandated to carry. Well, there's a clue to why the costs are so high. If it's the states requiring them to do it, it's probably because they're not going to do it on their own because it's not cost effective. Thus, the prices have to go up. Colorado option plans is expected to be just under 8%, that increase. But those plans apply only to the individual and small group market, which represents about 12 to 14% of the total market, according to the Division of Insurance. Under the Colorado option law, health insurance premiums in 2024 must be 10% lower than 2021 premiums. For 2025 plans, they must hit a 15% reduction target. Vincent Pelmai, Deputy Commissioner at the Division of Insurance, said whether those targets are met will be determined after the division analyzes insurance company filings in the coming months. Jeez. So here we have this bureaucracy, this Division of Insurance, having to analyze insurance company filings to decide how much they need to charge. I mean, this is price fixing. It totally doesn't work. These price control systems only create shortages, drive up costs, limit the amount of services available to consumers. Health insurance plans and premiums should be finalized by October in time for the November open enrollment period. Under the proposal, the division said Colorado option plan costs will increase by 7.7%, with non-option plans set to increase by 11.1%. But those are only requested rates, and the division said that some of the average premium increases could go down after the division does its analysis. 6 companies will offer health insurance plans statewide in Colorado for 2024. So here's the kicker, right? The six companies doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about a state as big as Colorado with millions and millions of people. Here's what's interesting. Bright Health, Humana, Oscar Health, and Friday Health Plans have pulled out of the Colorado market in 2023. The division announced on Monday it was seeking to liquidate the latter of that group, and that Friday Health Plan's 30,000 members would have to find new insurance when the plans cease to operate on August 31st. So here we go. There's only six companies that are basically able to sell insurance here in Colorado under these schemes that the government is putting on. So one, two, three, four have left the market. Well, what happens when you lose competition? You have less options, and of course, premiums are going to go up. I mean, it's not surprising at all. So take a look at that article. It is a shame what our government is doing to our state in terms of raising the cost of living and now making health insurance more expensive. Of course, we know what the playbook's going to be. These politicians are going to blame the market. They're going to blame these greedy insurance companies for these health insurance increases and come along with more state mandated schemes that are probably going to only reduce competition, reduce options for people, and raise costs. So check it out. Let's move on to the next article of the week here. DenverPest.com. Homelessness surged in Metro Denver in 2023, new count shows. Now, I hate to beat a dead horse, talk about homelessness almost every week, but if you've been to downtown Denver recently, which you definitely should be going to downtown Denver, the Independence Institute, a great establishment there, hosts Liberty on the Rocks the first and third Mondays of almost every month, but go check it out. Gives you a reason to get down to downtown Denver and talk to other liberty-minded individuals. But the scary thing is, you go down there at night. I mean, it's late, it's dark. The amount of tents, the amount of homelessness everywhere, it doesn't seem like a safe environment. And of course, people are looking for answers. So this really only confirms this article, this study, this new count only confirms what people are seeing. It's not surprising at all, but it is unbelievable to see how much this population has grown recently. Number of people living in shelters on streets rose more than 31% in seven-county Denver region. That's a lot of people. Joe Rubino from the Denver Pest, July 24th, 2023. Homelessness in the Denver area got significantly worse between the winter of 2022 and 2023, according to a point-in-time count of people living in shelters or on the streets. On January 30th, 9,065 people were counted as homeless in the Denver region, according to the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. That's a 31.7% increase over the point-in-time count from January 2022, which recorded 6,884 people living in temporary shelters or on the streets across the metro area. So in 2022, just shy of 6,900. And now, here in January of 2023, we're looking at 9,000. So, wow, I mean, over 2,000 people, more than 2,000 people on the streets than there was a year ago. That's a lot of people. 2,000 people. Wow. Since January 2020, the number of unhoused people in the seven-county region has spiked more than 48.5%, according to the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. It's an increase many service providers saw coming as the COVID-19 pandemic upended the economy. Hey, don't blame the pandemic. It was government response. It was government shutting down businesses, driving people to alcoholism, to drug use, destroying families, and really shattering civil society. I mean, that's what happened during those years, disproportionately impacting low wage workers while the cost of housing continued to surge in the Denver region. The reality is that almost every government intervention in the economy disproportionately impacts low wage workers. I mean, that's the truth of it, whether it's raising taxes, increasing the cost of health insurance, taking away our taxpayer refunds. I mean, who is that going to disproportionately impact the most? Come on. With this data, we're seeing the full impact of the pandemic play out, said Jamie Reif, the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative's executive director. The city of Denver, home to most of the metro area's homeless, shelters, and service providers, continues to be the leading community in the metro area for homelessness. Those conducting the count found 5,818 people living unhoused in Denver. The remaining 3,247 people counted were spread across Adams at 948, Jefferson at 854, Boulder 839, Arapahoe 442, Broomfield 92, and Douglas 72. Wow. So, it is a shocking situation. Of course, they go in this article, they talk about Mayor Johnston, the new Denver mayor, and his plans. We'll see what kind of impact that has. His goal was to house 1,000 people by the end of the year. Well, if it's increasing by 2,000 people every year, then you're not really taking care of the entire problem. And of course, very few people are talking about the root cause of these issues. So that remains to be talked about and discussed. Well, let's go ahead and move on. See what else we got in the news this week. So sticking kind of with that homeless issue, this is a great Complete Colorado page 2. Definitely a website you should be checking out every day. Lots of great information and original reporting. This is from John Caldara of the Independence Institute. Denver's real emergency is crime, not homelessness, from July 26th, 2023. Attention, attention, now hear this. Denver is operating under a declaration of emergency. Mayor Michael Johnston has invoked his constitutional authority to declare a state of disaster emergency. In doing so, he has granted himself extraordinary officious authority to circumvent normal checks and balances of due process to address the crisis for the safety of the people of the city. The crisis? Thousands of homeless infesting our streets. Strong word there. The action he's taking, doubling down on the policies that have created the problem in the first place. Well, no surprise that if government created the problem, government is unlikely to solve the problem. First, the usual disclaimer. Johnston is a remarkably affable, likable individual who's starting a very difficult job, and I do wish him all the best in the many challenges in his new role. Well, very kind of Caldera there. That said, declaring a state of emergency on your first day in office could have been a way to signal there's a new sheriff in town. Instead, Johnston used it to signal the same kind of sucker is in town, but with a bigger wallet. I love that. Those of us who remember New York City and its big decline also remember a young mayor named Rudy Giuliani who fixed it. There are some lessons for Denver's young mayor there. Before Giuliani lost his status representing Trump post Jan 6, he earned the reputation as, quote, America's mayor for his steadfast handling of the September 11 attacks and how he cleaned up a crime infested city. He too wanted to do something on day one of his administration to show he took the crime situation seriously. Instead of creating more ways to give criminals even more goodies, as Johnston is doing right now, Giuliani decided to take them off the streets. His first small target was the squeegee men. These were the guys who would clean your car windshield at stoplights. If you didn't give them a dollar, they might break off your wiper blade. He started arresting them, and surprise, surprise, nearly all of them had outstanding warrants for a variety of other crimes, which Giuliani was happy to see landed them in jail. This began the rapid cleanup of New York City, which changed it from a crime-ridden city to a revitalized, safe destination again. Johnston's emergency plan has nothing to do with fighting crime. It has nothing to do with arresting and jailing criminals. It has nothing to do with forcibly removing people who are injuring innocent Denverites. Mayor Johnston's emergency orders only gives him more incentives and more services to people to be homeless, just like Denver has been doing since Mayor John Hickenlooper's foolish 2005 Road Home project to end homeless permanently by 2015. As Denver and Colorado have been doing with crime for nearly 2 decades, it is all carrot and no stick. Denver's problem is that there aren't enough beds for the homeless. It's the transients, addicts, and mentally unstable people don't want to stay in them. Yet Johnston's plan is all about providing more for them, such as expedite permitting and construction timelines for homelessness and affordable housing projects, develop city-owned and private land for supportive housing, micro-communities, and navigation centers, take immediate action to improve life for those living on the streets, as well as the businesses and neighborhoods surrounding them by deploying trash, hygiene, and care centers to encampments. So Caldera brings up a great point here. I mean, of course, you want more of something, you subsidize it. By Mayor Johnston just making it easier and making it more likely for homeless people to come to Denver and making it a little more comfortable for them to live on the streets. What do you think's going to happen? We had 2,000 people, more than 2,000 people join the homelessness community here over the last year. I mean, if all of a sudden if they get care services, hygiene, micro communities and supportive places where they can come stay, you think that's going to attract more people? Of course it is. I completely understand the compassion, the idea behind this. Of course, you want to help these people. I mean, these people are struggling. They need services, they need help. But unless you're addressing that root cause, you're not actually going to solve the problem. You're just going to make it easier for them to continue this kind of lifestyle. So interesting article. Read the rest of it. These links are always found at freestatecolorado.com. And let's take a look. Next article here. Greeley Tribune. Conservative group sues Colorado House and Senate, alleging internal voting system breaks state law. All right. The suit comes on the heels of a separate allegation that the House routinely breaks open meeting laws. There's the state capitol there. Now, this is originally from the Denver Pest, Seth Klarman, July 27th, 2023, 5 a.m. A conservative group is suing the Colorado House and Senate, plus their Democratic leadership and three lawmakers, for allegedly violating the state's transparency law via the use of an internal voting system to rank Democratic legislators' budgetary priorities. The suit, announced Wednesday, was filed by the Public Trust Institute, a conservative nonprofit, and David Fornoff, a Douglas County resident who's being represented by the conservative Advance Colorado Institute. The suit accuses the Democratic members of the state House and Senate of breaking the state's open meeting law by using a, quote, quadratic voting system that allows legislators to privately rank legislation that will require state money. The practice, reported by KUNC earlier this year, which we covered on an earlier weekly roundup, lets Democratic lawmakers internally prioritize how to spend limited state funding on their various bills, which can then influence what bills are passed, pared back, or shelved entirely. Using a digital system, each Democratic legislator is given 99 digital tokens to rank bills. A legislator could theoretically spend all 99 of their tokens on one bill or spread them across multiple, depending on their priorities. The results of this year's voting were produced upon request to the Denver Post, though they did not include an accounting of individual legislators' rankings. Quote, this secret voting scheme clearly violates the Colorado open meetings laws, and we're filing this lawsuit because every legislator should be held accountable to the public, Michael Fields, the president of Advance Colorado, said in a statement. Well, first off, kudos to Michael Fields and the Advance Colorado team. They've really been at the forefront here, fighting back against the authoritarian Democrats in our state capital and across Colorado. So good to see them doing this. Great to see that there's this lawsuit being launched. It's interesting that this information more is coming out, of course, from some of the Democratic legislators talking about what their leadership is failing to do. So very interesting. It'd be very interesting to see how this plays out, and good to see some accountability being held. It is, of course, an insult to democracy or representative government that legislators meet in secret to decide which bills should be passed, how money should be spent. I mean, they're supposed to be representing the people. They're supposed to be our spokespeople, so why should they be hiding anything they are doing when they are working for the people? So let's move on. Follow-up story to that one from CPR News. Democrats may stop using secret ballot system to plan legislation in Colorado Senate as conservatives sue. So July 26th, July 26th, 6:41 p.m. So later the same day, there's another update to the article. Of course, the Capitol there. So as we know, a conservative group has filed a lawsuit, as we saw in the previous article. Kind of goes through some of the background. We don't need to see that again. Definitely check that out. So here's where we go. This year, lawmakers set aside $30 million for new legislative spending priorities, which was the focus of the votes in the anonymous polling system. Democrats also released the overall results of the 2023 quadratic voting poll upon request, but they've kept lawmakers' individual answers secret. We saw that. So here is what Fenberg says. So, as you know, Senate President Steve Fenberg has been basically spent his entire career, his entire life in politics since he graduated from CU Boulder, led New Era, Colorado, to help take over the state of Colorado for the Democratic authoritarian system here. Of course, he's from Boulder. So he said the legislators' lawyers have cleared that approach, saying it's legal because lawmakers are providing the ultimate results and only withholding the work product that went into those results is allowed under open records law. He stood by the practice both legally and ethically, dismissing the lawsuit as a partisan pile-on. But he said he is ready to take a new approach because he worried about the effects of the lawsuit on public opinion. So that's a very good point, of course. I think, whether you're a Republican, Libertarian, or otherwise, really hammering home this idea that these legislators are meeting in secret, plotting behind closed doors of how they're going to spend your money is a very compelling narrative. Quote, we probably won't be using this software or this system in the future because I think Advanced Colorado is exploiting it as a way to have people be more skeptical of the public process and my party in the legislature. Oh my gosh, that is political speak right there, right? He's blaming the people who are suing him, blaming the people who are exposing this practice, blaming the people who are trying to hold him accountable. If there had nothing to hide, if he wasn't doing anything wrong, then why would they want to change what they're doing? So the truth comes out there if you read between the lines, right? So a little bit of a follow-up. Just I thought it was interesting to see what the response was to this lawsuit from the Democratic leadership. Fenberg, of course, is at the center of the Colorado Democratic takeover. So very interesting to see him get a little slap on the wrist and get a little flustered here. Happy to see that. All right, couple more articles here from the Denver Post. Opinion. Proposition HH is a Tabor runaround, and voters are smart enough to know that. Yes, 100%. So Proposition HH is a horrible hoax, as my friend Natalie says, but it's much worse than that if you ask me. Gosh, look at that guy. Krista Kafer, columnist for the Denver Post, July 28th, 2023. Since it became law in 1992, Democrats have been determined to eliminate the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, TABOR, by hook or by crook. Having lost lawsuits and attempts at repeal, they're now trying the latter strategy with Proposition HH. Gosh, these Democrats are against working class people having rights to their tax money. Wow. Hooked up at the very end of the legislative session, ostensibly to reduce skyrocketing property taxes, the proposal, if successful, will finally accomplish Democrats' long sought dream the end of TABOR refunds, or at least a significant reduction. Fortunately, new polling data show, we covered that last week, that when voters read the fine print, they see the proposition for what it is, and they don't support it. While Colorado is a solidly blue state, I'd argue with that a little bit, Coloradans consistently vote to preserve the TABOR tax limits. In addition to requiring voter approval for tax hikes, the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights places limits on the amount of tax revenue the government can keep and spend. When the state collects more than it is entitled to, it must refund the money to taxpayers. Last year, Coloradans received a $750 TABOR refund checks. So, I mean, really, when you think about it, $750 during these hard economic times with health insurance premiums skyrocketing, inflation out of control, your grocery bill skyrocketing, the cost of everything going up. How dare these Democrats, how dare these politicians attempt to take more money out of our pockets? Because 2022 was an election year, the legislature voted to issue checks early and rebranded the TABOR refund as the Colorado Cash Back, a benevolent gesture from the government. In a cynical about face, the same legislature voted this year to ask taxpayers on their fall ballots to reduce future refunds. Higher than expected property value assessments issued by county assessors provided a never let a serious crisis go to waste opportunity they couldn't resist. So 100%. You got to read this article. You got to really understand the scheme and the scam that the Democrats in the state legislature are pushing. And of course, one of the people leading that charge is this little man right here. But let's move on. A couple more stories to cover. Definitely something you need to be paying attention to, though. Arapahoe County commissioners appear primed to ask voters to give up tax refunds. From the Great Complete Colorado, page 2, from Sherry Pife, July 27th, 2023. So, as you may have seen, Arapahoe County is scheming behind the scenes to steal more tax money from their residents. While property owners across the state are facing a looming jump in property taxes, as high as 40% or more, Arapahoe County residents are likely to see a ballot initiative that would deliver yet another hit to their wallets by way of their Taxpayers' Bill of Rights TABOR refunds. Arapahoe County commissioners appear likely to place some form of a de-TABOR question on the 2023 ballot, asking if the county can keep all taxes collected, forgoing the refund of excess revenue. Commissioners claim a severe deficit in funds to keep up with the growth of the county and threaten a reduction in services if the increased revenue is not granted. Quote, the county has significant infrastructure, public safety, and general service needs, and funding has not kept pace with inflation or community expectations, end quote. The 5 commissioners wrote in an editorial published in the Villager newspaper. The stark reality is that without new sources of revenue, the board will be forced to eliminate or reduce vital county services. Wow. So, what about people who are reducing things in their own lives, right? Because they can't afford it. Now the county wants to take more money from the people. Although the commissioners have not officially introduced a measure to refer to voters, they have discussed the matter in 3 separate executive sessions, according to minutes of the 3 separate meetings. Natalie Metten, a longtime political activist from Lakewood who was instrumental in defeating 2 different Jefferson County D-Tabor ballot initiatives and who is a Tabor Foundation board director, said in a recent interview with Brandon Wark from Free State, Colorado, that there is time to stop what's happening in Arapahoe. So you can definitely check that video out at the link there. They have an upcoming town hall, Metten said. They will want to control those conversations with canned presentations and polls, she continued, encouraging Arapahoe County residents to stack that telephone town hall with calls. Metten pointed out that despite officials saying there has not been a tax increase in 20 years, Tabor allows for the county to keep more revenue as inflation and local growth increase. So if you live in Arapahoe County or know somebody who does, make sure they read this article. Make sure that you're involved in this process. Tell your county commissioners, do not take away your taxpayer Bill of Rights protections. Do not take away your rights. I mean, life is getting more and more expensive, as we've seen, and it's really shameful that these politicians think that they deserve more of your hard-earned money. All right. Last article of the week. Everybody's least favorite politician here in Colorado. The man himself, Governor Jared Polis. Appointees to Parks and Wildlife Commission draws criticism. Well, big surprise there that maybe Jared Polis is out of touch with rural Colorado, people who hunt and eat meat, as we've seen over the past few years. Marianne Goodland at Colorado Politics, July 27th, 2023. Some elk. Yet another controversy arose out of Governor Jared Polis's appointments to the State Parks and Wildlife Commission last week, after he picked the author of Colorado's Wolf Conservation Plan as a representative for hunters and anglers. The issue, critics said, is that this appointee isn't a well-known hunter or angler, supporting their claim that Polis picks individuals whose backgrounds appear to contradict the stated goals of the commission. The governor is standing by his decision. Wow. So the author of Colorado's Wolf Conservation Plan, wow, unbelievable. It's not the first time Polis has appointed someone who isn't well known for being a hunter or angler to the commission. Back in 2019, his choice of Betsy Blecha, a former Jackson County commissioner, raised eyebrows because she had little to no experience as a hunter or angler and had moved to the Eastern Plains, an area she was supposed to represent on the commission just a few months before the appointment. This time, the appointee for the sportsperson spot on the commission is Gary Skiba, a former wildlife biologist for the Department of Wildlife, who has close ties to organizations that sponsored the wolf ballot measure in 2020. Skiba is not well known as a sportsman, hunter, or angler. He is more prominently known as the author of the effort to bring wolves to Colorado, one that hit yet another snag last week when the state of Idaho said no to Colorado getting wolves from that state. Skiba, a member of Defenders of Wildlife, was a named plaintiff in a 2021 lawsuit against the state of California in its efforts to delist gray wolves from the endangered species list in that area. Yikes. A filing from the plaintiffs pointed out that Skiba was, quote, the primary author of Colorado's Wolf Conservation Plan, has participated in field surveys for wolves in Colorado, and has been active in the ongoing effort to restore wolves to the southern Rocky Mountains. A coalition of wildlife conservation groups had suggested that Polis pick someone else. Wow, so here we go. So Jared Polis, of course, stacking the deck, filling up this commission with people who are not hunters and anglers and maybe are hostile to the interests of hunters, anglers, and other outdoor enjoyers. So shame on Jared Polis, of course, for not representing Colorado, but just filling in people that, fit his ideological agenda instead of the people best suited for the position. Well, check out all these articles at freestatecolorado.com. Really appreciate you joining me this week. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time.